Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like we get any more time for us?
We sleep in the same bed now.
We do sleep in the same bed.
Not the whole night.
But we sleep sometimes.
Sometimes.
Oh, no, take it back. We don't sleep in the same bed.
Not most of the time,
Yeah.
but sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes. But
I left the bed at 3 a.m. last night when Ryu came up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think we do. I definitely think, I think it just keeps getting incrementally better. I am amazed. I'm amazed at how time passes. And I think, I love this about us because some parents say that so woefully, like, oh, I just wish they stayed this small forever, or, oh my gosh, like you just blink and they're grown up, like I just want them to stay small. And we have both been on team, like, grow up. We'll do this with you, and we're in this with you, and we get it, and we understand this is an integral part of you growing up and becoming the kind of people that we know can contribute to the world in an amazing way and contribute to our life rather than just taking from it. But yeah, there's definitely no part of me that's like, oh, if I could go back. Like, I can't believe we've come this far, and I've never steered the ship around. Yeah, the seas just keep getting a little smoother, so I feel like we do get more time, but I feel like you're gonna not feel the same way.
I don't. I think that it's getting easier, but I don't think that we get couple time, like ever. You know, the closest thing we get is when we do go to Lauren's house, and there's like other adults that can kind of mitigate, but then still, it's not necessarily us as a couple, it's us as a couple with the group, which I think is a different version of who we are together. And so we don't get that often unless the kids go to my dad's house or to Lauren's and we're not involved in that transition, but I don't think that we have that. I still stand on that moment when I was saying that I don't think the fire is dimmed. I think that it's just burning and we don't get to enjoy it. It's just there. And so, which is nice because we got to do other things. We get to see our kids grow up. We get to see each other as parents together. We get to, you know, be as a family. But as far as
business
us,
partners.
Business partners, but as far as
we do spend a lot of time together working.
Yeah.
We do spend a lot of time together parenting. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I'm specifically talking about us being a couple. And so I don't think that we get that. And so, yeah, I feel very similar that I did in that video of like, there's not really that many times where we get to just be us together. And I'm saying it's okay. It's not the negative that I think I felt back then, because back then, I think that when we were together as a parenting unit, it was like shit, you know, like the kids were crazy.
Hey guys, welcome to Little Blackbird 91. Listen, I was watching Shan Boody. Shout out to Shan Boody because, yo, her and Jared be having the realest conversations that I feel like all of us can learn from. So I'm never, ever, ever, ever against Shan Boody and Jared. I want to thank them because they always have the honest conversations that I believe can help many a times other couples. I want to keep it real though. Okay, listening to Shan Boody and Jared's conversation, I did sense something, right? And again, this is my own personal thoughts to what I'm actually hearing, is that a lot of times we ask men, where do they check out? Right? We say, oh, that man checked out and, you know, he don't care about her. He just started cheating or he started doing whatever he was doing, right? And we talk about women as well. Oh, we don't know what happened. She just started drifting from her man. And nobody seems to ever know when someone's drifting out. I'm going to say that we are witnessing potentially a drift out that could happen here, okay? Now, when I say drift out, what that means is emotional drifting means when we begin to distance ourselves from a relationship and we begin to become apathetic. Now, I think they're still in a good place because I listening to them, you can hear them fighting, you can hear them not fighting like fighting, but fighting for the love, still working it out, still really trying to decipher how to navigate the seasons that they're in, right? And every relationship has seasons, so we're not against the fact that they could be in a very lower season than usual. It's not, we're not going to be against them for that. But what I was hearing was a repeated pattern of a need that had not necessarily been met, and it's now 2 years. Now, here's my thing. I said to myself, if we were to put this in a different position, I'm going to play the clip for you again and you'll see what I'm saying, right? And it wasn't the man complaining. It was a woman complaining about the emotional intimacy that was needed in a relationship and how important the emotional intimacy is. Many people would be like, oh my God, like she's starving right now and she needs the affection of her partner. And this is why women quit relationships. Well, a lot of times we don't get to witness what happens with men and what happens, how they drift. And permit me to say this because it's going to sound very shallow, quote unquote, according to a lot of people's thought process, because oftentimes they make sex to be very shallow. But sex is a very important thing to men, okay, specifically. Okay, because it's one of the ways that we actually really connect with the woman that we love and we care about. It's one of the ways that we actually, as well, really develop our intimacy in that way, right? And you know, we enjoy it and we enjoy, consummating with our partners. Okay, it's a big thing for men. All right, there's a validation that comes from it. There's a renewal that comes from it, a freshness that comes from it, right? Being that space where you are desired and you desire your partner. Now, I was listening to Jared and I was hearing him speak. And what I was hearing him speak was that, and it's not necessarily about just the frequency. It was actually about the intimacy of sex in terms of being able to have sex where it's not forced or where it's like, it's not necessarily quote unquote scheduled. Now, there was a time in the season where we're going to have to schedule sex because you got kids and you got a business. Totally understand that. They're not wrong. But there's also a point where we're going to have to start balancing it so that it doesn't become so monotonous that we are, like he was saying, sacrificing their sleep. And, you know, it's, you know, it is in a space where they are having to kind of almost like force it a little bit. Because, of course, again, they got to fit it in. And I'm not mad at it. It's real life. It's real life. But I want to go back to the very beginning. I want to listen to what was actually said here, because there is this disconnect that's happening. And this started from a conversation they had 2 years ago. This is a continuation. So 2 years later, they had the same conversation after to see where they're at. He's still in the same place. I said, oof. He's still in the same place? Oof. All right, cool. Listen to this.
Has the addition of a second baby changed our relationship?
I don't feel like us as a partnership, as a unit, really get time. We don't even sleep in the same bed anymore. And so there is a disconnect that you naturally start to feel. And sometimes you get to a place where, like, is there something wrong with me? Does she still love me? Is she still interested in me? Is she still about this? Like, because we don't have that connection that we naturally would get where we're laying with each other, or we're talking, or we're going out. And so that leads to, like, insecurities in our relationship.
What's interesting about
Now let's pause it right there. Now, the video might have been edited, so I don't know what was actually said in regards to the actual conversation long term. She might have said what she needed to say, and it might have been edited. But what was interesting was that he said more than just having sex. He talked about her sleeping in the bed. He talked about the intimacy of being together. He spoke about the time that they spend together, the quality time they spend together as a couple individually. Okay? All right? That they needed that time. Sounds very much like how women oftentimes speak about needing that quality time from their successful husband or whatever, right? He's never here with me. He never wants me. He never spends time with me. That's what he's kind of almost deducting. And I'm not blazing him at all. I'm just kind of highlighting needs here, right? So his need is, he needs that quality time. He needs that intimacy. He needs, you know, Shan Boody to be more with him in a one-to-one setting where they're not thinking about business or the kids. It's just them. Right? And of course, with the kids coming through, it does make it a little bit more difficult because they've got to balance that act. Totally understand. We're not denying that. All right. But I want you to listen because that was his point. And look what happens next. Now, it might have been edited, like I said. So I'm always cautious about that.
hearing your experience is my experience is completely opposite to yours.
Okay.
Because I actually said this to you, that I don't even know how people could leave their partner at this time. Like, I am so in love with you, desperately in love with you, because you're all I have.
Yeah.
Like,
now let's pause it right there. We said this yesterday, okay, when I did a video with Love and Marriage Detroit, when our brother Brandon said, you know what, God told me to be here, right? She said, I don't even know how people can leave people at this point in time, because really and truly, I need you. So her love was dependent, and again, her love was dependent upon the fact that she needs him in this moment, rather than. And I'm only estimating as I'm guessing, because I like Shan, Boody and Jared. I want them to work out. I can't lie to you. I actually like their conversations. They really are healthy in the way they discuss and dialogue things as well. So nothing against them per se. I want to make it very, very clear. So it's interesting to say that when she said about the need aspect, because it was like, it made it as if, well, if the kids weren't here, right, would your love be as deep? You know what I'm saying to you? Right? And it's the wording once more again, right? It's wording. Because she could have said, listen, my love has deepened even now, realizing how much you helped me around the house or how much you helped me with the kids. But she said it like, I need you because of the kids. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need you because if you're not here, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's like that level of dependence makes it not necessarily about love, but almost obligation. And sometimes that can be a little bit, you know, that can feel some type of way. But again, it's not a big deal. I just want to listen to, again, just highlight something.
Like, the thought of isolating from you or not having you is not only something that makes me sick to my stomach, it's not even an option. Like, I would fucking die without you.
No, and
that's what I know. But let me finish. What I'm saying is that knowledge, like, to your point, life is so crazy and so overwhelming and so busy. If I didn't have you, I would be dead. So every moment, and it's less moments than it used to be for sure, that I get to look over and I see you, I'm like, thank God for Jared.
Yeah.
Like, everything in me feels so much more connected and grateful and lustful towards you, because, like, you're literally the difference between me and insanity. What do you think is different?
Now let's pause it right there, because actually, and again, the conversation might have been edited because she's going back in her own video to try and explain something. So I want to open that caveat as well. But let's say we just follow the flow of the conversation. And her, obviously, in that moment, when he expressed that there wasn't necessarily a connection there that was happening, she actually didn't validate the connection at all. She totally told us that she has a completely different way of looking at it. Now, it may have got to that point where they ended up validating each other's points of view, but her point of view was so different to his, which is fine because it happens. But then there was no validation of his point where he was saying, listen, hey, I feel like we're lacking connection. I feel like we're not really together. I feel like, we're not da-da-da-da. And again, it might have been edited, but we didn't hear the validation of his point that he's needing this from you. Like, it's serious. Like, it's not a joke thing. He needs that from you, right? It's a need. Right, and so she went on to say, obviously, no, it's completely different for me. I'm feeling it. I'm like, it's great. I look over, I realize how much I need you. I realize, and of course, she's obviously, she's a guru as well, and she is really good at what she does. By the way, guys, she's amazing. I've got to admit that. And so, it almost felt like an almost dismissive point. And as you heard him do, he tried to interrupt, I think, because he was trying to make it very clear what his point was. And she had every right to let him not talk because she was talking. So he had to wait his turn, to be honest. Like I said, when we interrupt, we invalidate people's points of view. So, it just was interesting to hear that. Now, the part where it goes on to about sex is really interesting too.
Different about our sex life now, if anything.
I just think it's quicker. It's not as long. It's not as set up. It's not. It's just not as time taken into it. It's more of we're gonna connect as long as we can, but we know we have something to get to. Which is cool in some aspects, but it'd be nice if we had a couple times where we didn't have to squeeze it in, But I think that will come when they get older and we can have one person watch both of them. Right now.
Now let's pause it right there, okay? He has a. Did you hear what you just said again? Did you hear the need? Now I want you to, if you're somebody who probably doesn't, maybe you might not understand it. I want you to flip the roles. If a woman was to tell us that, I would like my partner to take a bit more time. I'd like to have a bit more time with him. Not rush sex. I'd want it just to be a bit more. We'd all be like, oh my god, you don't understand. You'd understand the point of view, but it can easily be lost when a man comes out and says, listen, I want more intimacy, right? Which is actually what more men should be doing. Because the reality of the situation is, you do want more intimacy. Most men want more intimacy. They just don't like saying it because it sounds very vulnerable and it sounds very mushy. But the reality is, you do. Okay, all right? You want more intimacy. And so what he's actually describing here is being very rushed and very quick. And it probably is, if he was to tie it, he needs to tie it to an emotion. That's what he should really do. And what is he actually feeling from that? I know we're not getting enough time, but how does that make you feel? Right? How does that make you feel, Jared? Because it's making you feel some type of way. That's why you brought up the point. So the behavior is, we're rushing sex. It's not very... Okay, now it's making me feel like I'm not necessarily involved in the relationship, or you don't really care about me like he did earlier on, or whatever. And then that causes me to, again, think about life a little bit, which he did a little bit earlier on too, right? It just needs to be here as well. But it's interesting, okay, to hear that there's a cry out for that intimacy.
Now we just don't have somebody who can take both of the kids away from us at a time. So we're just kind of stuck with this temporary quickies.
Interesting, too, because I feel the opposite.
What?
This is supposed to be a update to the video that we shot in Colombia in 2000.
So she feels very, very differently at the point as well. She said, for her, she feels differently because, again, once more, in this situation, okay, all right, she feels like, hey, I feel differently about the situation, which is not, again, again, we have different contrasting ideas, and that's always going to be a real thing. Human beings have different ways of looking at things. It's not always going to be the same way we're going to look at things. So again, not a problem once more, because once more again, it is understandable they have different points of view, but they had a different point of view, and it felt like they're seeing things in totally different ways. Now, when we come into the 2 years later, which is what we're looking at right now, which is very recent, they're having this conversation again. Let's listen.
2022. I would love to get your first reflections, because we listened to it this morning while we got ready for this.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like we get any more time for us?
We sleep on the same bed now.
We do sleep in the same bed.
Not the whole night.
But we sleep sometimes.
Sometimes.
Oh, no. Take it back. We don't sleep in the same bed.
Not most of the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes. But
I left the bed at 3 a.m. last night when Ryu came up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what's actually happening? We're 2 years down the line, and like she said, she gets up to go and see the kids. She's not able to sleep in her bed. And I wonder, and I get that, obviously, because the kids are very, very young. I wonder why they don't have the Ryu's obviously, I think, the older one, so that's probably why. So, yeah, I can understand. When I think Ryu needs a bit more attention, like they said, like the energy, the everything like that. It sounds like we might need a bit more better boundaries for the kids. Can I be honest with you? Sounds like we need better boundaries for the kids because Ryu's probably what now? 6 or something like that, 5, 4. The kid's like older because the kid was actually running around in the other video 2 years ago. So the kid's old enough to be in a bed, okay, with some discipline and some boundaries, okay, all right, and is old enough to be in bed. Now I don't know their situation. Maybe Ryu's got. We don't know what's happening with Ryu. Maybe there's something else behind the scenes that we're not seeing and we're not heard. So maybe that's why Shan Boody has to keep going to stay in the bed with Ryu, maybe at points. But I'm hearing again 2 years later that we're not staying in the same bed once more again. So it was happening there, and we're now 2 years down the line, and we still got the same issue of not staying in the bed. And forget the sex, the intimacy that he's requiring with staying in the bed and how it makes him feel. We're still not nowhere better. We started off by saying, yeah, we are staying in the bed. Listen to what he said. It started off by saying they try to cover it up, and then he was like, let's just be honest about it. You're not. Right? Let's listen again.
We don't sleep in the same bed.
Not most of the time,
Yeah.
but sometimes.
Yeah.
So most of the time they don't sleep in the same bed, but sometimes there is distance starting to creep in. We've got to be very, very careful. And like I said, he's been saying it for almost 2 years. What would we say to a woman who's been saying the same point for 2 years? I've kept telling you this. Whispers become loud sounds. This is how divorces begin to happen because people begin to then say, what's the point? My needs are not going to get met. So I'm going to just drift. But he needs to keep saying the needs because there needs to be a change in those needs. Now, there are some things that will never change. It's relationships. There are some things that it will take a much longer time for certain needs to be met. And there are some things that will be much harder. We have to keep going round and round sometimes to get it right. So this might be one of those things we have to keep going around and get it right. But we need to we need to be able to acknowledge what are the factors that are stopping us from being able to sleep in the same bed because clearly he's affected by this. He doesn't say it out loud, but he'd be saying it out loud.
Yeah, sometimes. But
I left the bed at 3 a.m. last night when Ryu came up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think we do. I definitely think, I think it just keeps getting incrementally better. I am amazed. I'm amazed at how time passes. And I think, I love this about us because some parents say that so woefully, like, oh, I just wish they stayed this small forever, or, oh my gosh, like you just blinked and then they're grown up, like I just want them to stay small. And we have both been on team, like, grow up. Like, we'll do this with you and we're in this with you and we get it and we understand this is an integral part of you growing up and becoming the kinds of people that we know can contribute to the world in an amazing way and contribute to our life rather than just taking from it. But yeah, there's definitely no part of me that's like, oh, if I could go back. Like, I can't believe we've come this far and I'd never steer the ship around.
Body language is telling me a lot. Can't lie to you. Okay, body language telling me a lot. He done swallowed in his. He did an internal swallow, and the eyes are telling, and the facial expressions. I'm not seeing the joy and the glee. Now, of course, it could be in a particular day. It's very hot as well where you are. There was a couple of flies that were flying around. Could be one of those things. We're not seeing that smile from Jared that we normally do. We're not seeing that energy from Jared. We're seeing a little bit more weight on Jared right now. And that comes because as you grow, as you mature, there's going to be more of that life going to be hitting you. But it's looking a little bit like Jared's looking a little bit jaded right now. And I'm not saying that to tame anything. It's more to say that I think that issue of the intimacy is a big thing. It's been 2 years. It's going to drag. You know what I'm saying to you? It's dragging a little.
Yeah, the seas just keep getting a little smoother. So I feel like we do get more time, but I feel like you're going to not feel the same way.
I don't. I think that it's getting easier, but I don't think that we get couple time, like ever.
So pause again. She said, obviously, I feel it's great. I think it's amazing. I think, we're doing so well. And yet at this point, okay, he's telling us right now, and she knew it as well, you're not going to say the same thing. Which means for the last 2 years, you've been suffering. Now, of course, long suffering, patience and endurance is a part of marriage and a part of love. So I'm not saying they should break up or anything. What I'm saying is we may need to look at, maybe we need to renegotiate at the table. Okay? Maybe we need to renegotiate because why is it that we can't do at least once? I may be overstepping and not understanding their position. Why is it they can't get someone to have 2 kids for the night? I just don't get it. In my head, I'm like, wait, why can't you have a nanny for one night? You don't need them forever. For one night. And take them kids and be quiet. Right? Why can't they just hire one nanny just to have 2? You telling me nanny can't do 2 kids? But then again, something's not quite right. I'm not sure. Maybe Ryu is maybe there's something with Ryu that they haven't told us about Ryu's behaviors or whatever, because it was a bit weird the way they were explaining it, almost as if like we couldn't find someone to take 2 kids. Now maybe it's something in Colombia, maybe they can't do something like that, maybe there's rules against it, I'm not sure. So I'm always open to the fact there's something more to it. So I don't know. It's just a bit weird, but I'm confused. I'm confused. For me personally, from my perspective, I'm wondering why they couldn't have a nanny. So maybe it could be the kid could be not autistic. Maybe that's what it is. You know, as well. Maybe that's what it is, because I'm wondering why they couldn't find a nanny for that. But even so, let's hire 2 nannies. I don't care what we got to do. You know what I'm saying to you? Let's hire 2 nannies, because we're about to enter a space of critical behaviors. All right. He's starting to check out, and he's starting to look like he's checking out, and I'm scared. I want to see them win, right? But you know, I think this is greater than just the kids not being taken over. Even if the nanny comes once every week, or the nannies come once every week, you know what I'm saying, for the day, you know what I'm saying, to Cole, you know what I'm saying, yeah.
You know, the closest thing we get is when we do go to Lauren's house, and there's like other adults that can kind of mitigate, but then still, it's not necessarily us as a couple, it's us as a couple with the group, which I think is a different version of who we are together. And so we don't get that often unless the kids go to my dad's house or to Lauren's, and we're not involved in that transition. But I don't think that we have that. I still stand on that moment when I was saying that I don't think the fire is dimmed. I think that it's just burning, and we don't get to enjoy it. It's just there. And so, which is nice, because we got to do other things. We get to see our kids grow up. We get to see each other as parents together. We get to, be as a family. But as far as business partners. But as far as us,
we do spend a lot of time together working.
Yeah.
And we do spend a lot of time together parenting. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I'm specifically talking about.
So again, once more, they spend a lot of time. They're spending with working. And the kids, and that's not, again, the kids are not the issue here, It's about the priorities we're placing and what value we place on time. I realize a lot of times, like, for instance, quality is better than the quantity, right? Because at the end of the day, right, he's not asking that their whole week be just them. He knows that's not it. Okay? He knows that he's not going to have it all week, but it sounds like we are missing each other because of quality rather than the quantity. The quality is an issue because it's not allowing us to tie us over. See, let me give you an example, right? Let's say you had sex twice a week, but if the quality was amazing, it might tie you up to the end of the week and be like, I can't wait for next week. Because you already know what's coming on, right? I know what's coming next week. I can't wait, because next week's going to be on fire. But if you're like having, you know what I'm saying to you, but if the sex is whack in 2 times a week, and you're like, oh, next week we're going to have more whack sex, it's the quality, not the quantity. And so oftentimes it's not necessarily the quantity of the time you're spending, it's the quality of the time you're able to spend with that person that can make a big difference. Not saying quantity is not important, just saying quality can also take over that as well. Okay, as well. Absolutely. I would say that's a big thing. He needs to be able to tell her what the quality time looks like and the frequency. Absolutely.
About us being a couple. And so I don't think that we get that. I feel very similar that I did in that video of like, there's not really that many times where we get to just be us together. And I'm saying it's okay. It's not the negative that I think I felt back then, because back then I think that when we were together as a parenting unit, it was like shit, like the kids were crazy, there was norovirus, we were getting sick all the time, there was tantrums, and then there was like an infant who was just like a constant need. So it was like still joyful and all those things are together, but at the end of the day now, it's like we get to be parents with kids that we actually enjoy spending time with, because there's a little bit more overlap on the things that we can do with them, the conversations we can have. When we go to the park and how we play with them is different than it was before, because they're getting older. So there is growth, but it's not romantic.
Yeah, I can feel that.
And so again, did you hear what you said? That ending was crazy. Like I didn't even miss. I was like, whoa, that was crazy. Listen to this.
There is growth, but it's not romantic.
Yeah, I can feel that. I'm thinking about.
And that's a real conversation. By the way, again, shout out to Shan, Boody, and Jared for having this conversation. It's a real conversation. And there's so many couples that probably are in the same space, probably we need to hear something like this as well. So I'm not I'm not advocating for them to break up. I want to see them win. They're not in a breakup. They're not divorced. But I'm scared. I don't want them to. I don't want to get there to that point. You know what I'm saying? So I want to speak up and say something before you get to a point, so we can also learn as well. So that if you're in the same position, okay, all right. So you're in the same position, you can learn something from this, right? Now I asked the exact same question, Leah, as well, right? I asked the same question because I said, do the kids have a schedule? Because it's given they don't have a schedule. Okay, it's giving they don't have a consistent schedule for the kids. That's what it was given, or they haven't scheduled with the kids, but then work is over. Work is now overbearing the situation, right? And I was like, you know what I'm saying to you, right? We need to do something. So I need Jared to also be specific. What does he want to do that will make sure that he will feel like he's more connected to her? Because she's having a totally different experience. She said it's amazing right now. She thinks it's great. And yet he's telling us it's not. Literally in real time, she told us it's amazing for her. And he's saying it's not. We're having two different experiences. Okay? Two different experiences. You know?
What I said in that video, in that my love for you was stronger and my bond for you was stronger because of how much I need you. And I don't need you as much anymore. And that's a positive thing. I think that there was a time where even being alone with the kids by myself was like really terrifying. I started drinking wine, you know what I mean? Like, just because I would get really stressed out, and it's just such differing needs. And when we had Zaya, I had gotten the parenting advice and I felt the need to lead into the parenting advice of give the love to the firstborn. The secondborn, give the needs and meet the needs, but give the love to the first. So I felt an extreme guilt ever giving attention to Zaya. And so when I was alone with them, it just put me in a really weird place. And so my like need for you was just like, like, don't leave, don't go. And like, you go and do something. I'm like, it's totally fine. On the inside, I was like panicked. Now, like, it's okay. Like, when you're there, it's beautiful and it's an additive. And when you're not, we've got our own flow and our own system too. And so now I get to enjoy you, I think, more in a being way.
And how do you think that our work life comparatively to then is now?
I'm really proud of us. I'm really proud of us. I think
Past level, we are a little clunky.
Yeah, right. I think what's happening a lot of late is we'll have a powwow and then we'll separate. We work very asynchronously, which in essence means like, okay, you got your side, I got my side, you do it on your time, I'll do it on my time. But you know what you're responsible for, I know what I'm responsible for. So that requires a lot of trust and a lot of good communication, because we're not sitting in, like, we're not in the same office, we're not holding hands, we're not talking all day. You'd be surprised if you worked with us, like how little we communicate throughout the workday, despite the fact that we're like 10 steps apart. But
so this is this part is interesting, right? So they're working, and they can be working in the same room, and they won't message each other, or at least talk to each other. Is giving problems, is going beginning of the end, right? Because whenever we're in that, whenever you look, the little intimacies are so intricate and so important, because it really helps. And do you know what I always say this, like, it's a little details that can make a difference to a relationship a lot of times for people, right? Because let's say, for instance, like when couples are really in a space where they can connect, even if it's a text or even just a message, or even if you just turn around in your seat, hey babe, you good? So, maybe we can go lunch today or whatever, or maybe we can go and do something. Do you know what I mean? But of course, they got the kids as well, so they both have to do that as well, which is very difficult, right? So I understand the difficulties. I'm not dismissing the difficulties of having the kids there. All I'm saying is, but it's giving. We're starting distancing, right? That's my only fear. Is like I'm hearing distance starting to creep in, and we need to nip it in the bud quick. Nip it in the bud quickly. You understand? Pew! We need to nip that in the bud quickly before it becomes an actual big problem. Because now we don't talk. Okay, they work asymmetrically or whatever she said. You know. And listen, I'm a person too. Yeah. When I work, I want to be in deep. But I always realize that, listen, the only reason why I do that is because I'm dismissive. When I'm in my work, I've got a flow. Yeah, I can do 2 hours, whatever, in the flow. But then I have to break out of it. I should be able to look at my phone and be like, all right, cool. Let me message you, see how you're doing. When people say they can't message you when they're working, trust and believe they can. They're avoiding you. It's just that simple, right? Which means there's something not quite right, or I need to analyze what's going on. Maybe you can't manage your emotions very well. Maybe you're feeling very stressed. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. Something isn't quite right. We need to be able to talk about it in that immediate, not that immediate moment, but we need to discuss it maybe in a relationship, because what we're seeing right now is that you're not able to function the way you need to function in a relationship. And so I'm actually missing you in the area of you being able to share what's going on with you. You know what I'm saying to you? Now, of course, Elsid says she doesn't message anybody. We know Elsid is a special candidate, okay? Elsid is one of the rare people, okay? All right? She's busy with work, so we know that already. But most of us who are not in that space, we need... You know what I'm saying to you? You're not so done in your work that you can't message. You know what I'm saying to you? Okay, all right. So that in most people's cases, that isn't the situation. I'm not saying that's everybody's situation. We've had this discussion before. We've discussed this before on this channel. It is not everybody's situation. If you know your situation is different, you work out your situation. But most people, all right, it ain't like that. You can get your phone. You can message, hey, just checking up on you, seeing how you're doing. It's a little checkup, right? It's a little checkup. Doesn't have to be a long conversation. Hey, how you doing? A few minutes. That's it. You know what I'm saying to you? That's it. Okay, you got a lunch break. Okay, all right. Okay, I got a few minutes. I got to get to my client, so I'm gonna go off on this.
I think of late we've like come together for these synchronous moments, like this, that, third, and then we separated, and then we've both been like, wait, what did you think I said? And you're like, okay, well, what did you think I said? Because we just didn't get the same message.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But we're hiring 2 people. It's gonna be taking some stuff off of our plate. We're hiring somebody specifically to help us with the organization. So overall, like, I think that you don't like this acronym, but.
Okay, so they're hiring some people. So I'm going to end on this note because I got to get off to my client. But I want to say this, like this is I like that. That's a good solution. Get someone in straight away. Let's get people helping us with the organization so we can focus more on the actual relationship. Now, there is a part which is interesting though. They had a week where they weren't doing anything and they still didn't have sex. I'll play that clip on part 2 when I come back for my client. But I was like, ooh, why did we do that? I was like, okay. But yes, this is good next steps, because what it will allow us to do is remove, okay, it will allow us to remove, okay, the stress of them. And you're absolutely right, Elsid. That's why I said to you this. That's why I said to you he's checking out, because I think he's heard this before. I've heard it all before. And so this is, again, when someone's doing that, it tells me they're disengaging. And they're disengaging from the conversation because they've heard it all before. And that's why I'm saying good next steps. I want to see it hopefully we can see it implemented and we can see a change to their relationship. But I got to go. I got a client and I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon. And I will be back in an hour's time to discuss part 2 of this, because I think it's a really good conversation to have as well. There's more that actually needs to happen as well, okay, in that space. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button. I'll be back in an hour for you guys.